How's it going, y'all? My name is Kendrick or Kendo, whichever you prefer, and welcome to another episode of Scouting Party, brought to you by Kobold Press. If this is your first time here, well, welcome to the party. If you've been here before, you already know what the deal is. This is the series where we give you in-depth interviews with the designers behind our brand new books, coming to you through Kickstarter. And just like the past couple of weeks, we are still talking about the Northlands, a setting and adventure path inspired by Norse mythology and history, coming to you for D&D 2024 and Tales of the Valiant. And guess what? You can go back it right now on Kickstarter. Last week, we unearthed many of the new character options awaiting you in the Northlands world book. Species such as the Ratatosk and the Werekin, subclasses like the Trickster Patron Warlock. We went over backgrounds and character threads, which are coming back from Castles and Crowns. This week, we are going to be talking about all of the tools and equipment that you are going to need out there in the north, and talking about the new raiding system which will let you do what Vikings do best: go out and raid, both during your downtime and during your adventure. I had the pleasure of talking with lead designer Brian Suskind and designer Nicholas Height about the new raiding system, all of the new equipment and vehicles that you're going to bring with you, and even the prophecy generators and the Omen tables that your game masters can use to really bring that Norse punch. Oh, and don't worry, there are plenty of longboats. Where there are Vikings, there must also be raiding. And we've talked a lot about raiding. I mean, one of your backgrounds could just be that you're a reaver.
Yeah,
right?
oh yeah.
And there is a new system, new mechanics for raiding for downtime, so players can do what Vikings do best.
That's right. Well, and it's not just for downtime. The thing is, I created this rating system so you could do it for downtime or not, or both.
Oh, okay.
So, like, if you wanted to, if you're as the GM and your players are like, well, we want to go do rating as a downtime, you can definitely use these rules to do it. And it basically shorthands the whole system down to some dice rolls, and then you see what you get. If you wanted to run it as part of your campaign, you can shorthand the journey, then do the combat and shorthand the journey back, or any combination.
Oh, I mean, hey, I love that. Whatever works for whatever table, right?
Right. So it gives the GM just tons of flexibility. Parts of it have to be abstracted because you don't know where you're going to, there's no way to write rules for every location that you're going to go raid, but we have this whole table of everything from like a hamlet to a castle, academy, schools, hill forts, villages, small towns, and like what you might expect in terms of opposition, what kind of spoils you might get from there, typical types of plunder, how well you do on the journey there, because there's obstacles on the journey, like how well your rolls go on the journey there can affect how the raid goes, and how well the raid goes can affect the journey back, which has other obstacles, whether or not which you could lose your plunder on the way back because of storms or because you don't have enough sailors left to make the boat really work well.
Yeah.
And so there's lots of mechanics in and around like the journey, the raid itself, and the return, because all of it's important. Because a lot of times in games, the way back is sort of, and then you make it home. It's not. They don't dwell on, like, coming back can be hard. You're wounded, you've lost half your crew. That's not the time to run into a sea serpent.
Yeah, exactly. And I love that it adds that bit of complexity, and that still, like, the risk of, like, okay, yeah, you did it. You still got to get it home. Like, that was half of the journey.
Right. In these tables that we've created, there's some bad things that can happen, but there can also be good things. Like, you might be blessed by the sea god on the way home, and it cuts your journey down by half just because you've, impressed him by how well you've sailed, or you could have advantage. Wotan can give you, like, you could have dreams of glory on the way to the raid, and suddenly you have advantage on all of your rolls when you get there. Come storming off the boat and no one can stop you. Of course, you might also be attacked by, the sea serpent, which, that could go poorly. And, and then it's all wrapped up in weather. And we've abstracted the loot down to what we call spoils. And your victory in the raid earns you a certain number of spoils depending on the type of location that you went off and raided. And each spoil is worth about 500 gold. Most GMs aren't going to want to hand sacks of gold over to their party because, and in Northlands, it's no different because, like I said before, it's not that you went raiding and came back with piles of gold. You most likely came back with piles of grain.
Right, because people
So
need to eat.
so the spoils are really what you then sold all that stuff for. And now you have gold. Or you have, and we have an exchange table for the number of spoils equals a magic item rarity. So like the GM can go, oh, you
Oh,
got 7 spoils. That's a rare item. What do you want? You know, and like then
yeah,
you get some bargaining between the GM and the player about what they're gonna get.
right. How do they get it? Who do they get it from? Which
Yeah,
then
and it also
creates,
depends on
yeah.
where you're selling all this stuff. Like you come
Hmm.
back to one of the major cities, you know, you could get some very rare items. If you're in a village, you're going to get a potion of healing. You know, it's because
Right.
you know it's
The
5 people in this
only
town. It's like, well, you know, they're not going to be sitting on a plus 12 Vorpal defender. You know,
right, right.
at the same time, we also because I've had this sort of time, I decided to make an Omen generator too.
Ooh,
And the Omen generators don't do anything at all in like materially. Like there's no mechanic really. There's no benefit. It's just either hopeful, forbidding, mysterious, or creepy. And they just you roll and it's weird thing happens. And it amused me greatly to write them.
now, hey, that's good. Sometimes that's the best thing. It's like, ah, this was fun. I'll do it.
Like the wind whispers your name. I think that's just gonna freak people out.
Yeah, it's ominous, it's creepy. It gives GMs like, especially like if they are trying to set up for a prophecy or a
Right.
curse or whatever, be like, okay, let's just throw an omen in there. Or you could just do it for fun. It's like a in fiction way to just roll the dice behind the
Yeah.
behind the DM screen and go,
Oh, I
okay.
do that all the time. Drives my players crazy.
Exactly. And now you can throw a crow watches you from a nearby tree at someone, you know?
Like a single red rose blooms amongst the snow. Like means nothing, but
But
they'll spend 12 hours looking at it. What
you go, ah, what is this? What is my
does it
prophecy again?
mean? Double rainbow.
Okay, so that's the species and subclasses, which are, the internal aspects of a character and what makes them who they are. But let's talk about the things that help them do what they do. And that's their equipment, their mounts, their vehicles, the things that they use to explore the world with. And I know that there are a lot of new, like Norse and Viking themed equipment and armor that players are going to get their hands on. And so I'm interested, what are some of those and what were your inspirations for them?
So, equipment is an area that I've always particularly liked to work in because as a frequently a player myself, it's one of a lot of players' favorite areas to customize their characters. As you
Hmm.
noted, you've got your race and your class, but like those are usually fairly set once you're done. So, I wanted to make sure that we had a lot of this uniquely Viking flavored stuff to help players lean into the Nordic warrior fantasy. It's fine if you've got like here is guy with axe, but I wanted to capture like very historical like soft wooden shields that are like they'll capture a weapon instead of being a deflection tool and they're disposable. You have to get a new one after every battle. Or these like very specifically Norse styled like the Bridox and the Atgir. Atgir is a historical pole arm
Hmm.
that shows up in just a handful of references and is like, oh yeah, we stabbed this guy with the pole arm and then like hauled and like launched him over the wall that he's defending. I'm like, oh, that's neat. So we tried to get I used the mastery system
Mm-hmm.
to try to bring in these more explicitly Nordic flavored weaponry and give them a way to stand apart from the existing, your standard great axe. So the Atgeir is a reach weapon. I believe it's a reach weapon. Don't quote me on that. That has it has the new mastery called pull. You get to stab a guy and then you can like yank him to you and step back at the same time. And then there are the Bridox is like a giant bearded axe. And the Saix is, I'm sure I'm butchering the pronunciation on that, but these are all actual Scandinavian weaponry that I found, archaeological articles about stuff like that. And then there was one, it's called the Ulberft blade, that I adapted from something called the Thermuth sword, which was a ninth century sword that was found in, I want to say 1825 outside of Sabo Sweden, something like that. And
Mhm.
it's one of the first weapons that we've got that actually had like full runic inscription along the blade, stuff like that. So it's just a surviving piece like that. I'm like, oh yeah, so we're gonna get like runic like luck blades and things like that and try to capture some of these area specific things with their own mechanics. And then there was a bunch of them that are just like, I want something that does this and let's have a cool thing.
Yeah.
So the Bryn Troll, and that's basically just we're gonna have guys who are in this area who are gonna need to kill giants and trolls and stuff like that. And so this was a weapon specifically for dealing with those.
I love how much these are all like they aren't just an item with a damage die, right? Like these have tactical purposes
Mhm.
that I mean both players and their enemies can use them to really change the way that combat can flow. And really, if I'm in the middle of the fight and one of my friends goes over the wall because someone's
Right.
told them, like that completely changes the direction that combat can go in a
Right.
way
Rather
that's
than just
really
being
cool.
guys trying to hold the wall, suddenly it's a rescue mission.
Exactly. Like it can really change a lot of and that gives players a lot more tactical options and a lot more ways that they can prepare for certain combat situations because if you're going into a place knowing, you know, oh, we know the territory looks like this or we know we're going to be fighting like along the wall or whatever,
Yep.
maybe you bring different equipment now and so you're not just stuck with yeah, I'm bringing my same short sword and shield or whatever. It's like no, you have to think about what you're going to be using.
That's always the hope. I like when somebody can take something and be like, I'm going to build my character around this type of weapon, but also like be flexible.
Yeah,
Sometimes having the right tool for the right job is fun.
you have all of those weapon proficiencies for a reason.
Right,
Might
yeah. That's
might
why we
as
play
well
a
use
fighter.
them. Exactly. Why be a fighter if you're just going to use the same sword and board the whole time?
So I grew up in Alaska, and so I have personal familiarity with a lot of the real life, like cold weather gear that you would use for sort of survival in a situation like this.
Yeah.
And we wanted to make sure that we were providing both rules for like being out in the frozen wasteland, because that's going to be a big thing,
Right.
and then also tools for addressing that. So we've got rules for things like skis and snowshoes and snow goggles. Don't think we made it to dog sleds. It's a little bit more
Oh,
my
that would have been
wheelhouse than the
sick.
Iceland thing, but that would be pretty cool too.
That would have been sick.
Um, I think my personal favorite was I made a couple of pieces using the Fabled rules. I forget the book that they were introduced in, but it's from an older
I think
Kobold piece.
Tome of Heroes. It's either Tome of Heroes or Vault of Magic, I think.
Vault of Magic was the one that I was drawing from. It might have been from earlier than that, but it reminds me a lot of the legacy weapons of legacy from 3.5 that grow up with your character as you progress, and it gives you
Yeah.
that I'm going to work on just this one weapon forever, and if that's what you want to do, this is how you would go about that.
Hmm.
But it also let me weave in a lot more like here is the like legendary backstory of this item. I wanted to lean into that general idea, and fabled items are both a really good way to introduce intelligent weapons because you get their powers and abilities and their intelligence are revealed slowly over time as you level up. So you might not know right off the bat that you've got a sword that's, maybe not exactly what you would prefer your alignment to be.
Hmm.
And so I made a handful of those, and by far my favorite one is this Bryn Troll. It's a giant troll slaying axe that shows up in it's actually part of a horde in one of the adventure bits. I won't go into where exactly. And then that was my take on the intelligent weapon that is a little bit has its own motivations and is maybe a little on the goofier side. I don't want to spoil what exactly it does, but
Of
I
course.
think it'll be really fun and really lean into players who are super into role playing, like the more bombastic elements of
Hmm.
a Viking campaign. I think I covered like maybe a quarter of it. There's
Yeah,
so much
right.
stuff in that book.
There's so it's chock full of just everything anyone could need to try to survive out in the Northlands and try also not to get killed by what's out in the Northlands. But let's talk about mounts and vehicles now, because I imagine, I mean, it's Vikings. Of course, they're going to be different ships. They're going to be different ways that people have to try to navigate this frozen wasteland. So let's start with the mounts. Are there any new mounts, and what makes them specific to the Northlands?
We had a shortish section on mounts for the Northlands. Obviously, we wanted to get like horses aren't amazing in the snow.
Right.
So we've got moose and reindeer are kind of your standard like go-to everybody. Well, maybe not everybody, but a lot of people will have these available. And then for exotic options, we've got mammoths and sea serpents if you can survive the freezing water. And then there are two like really supernatural options. One is the Sleipnir Springer. It's the offspring of Odin's famed eight-legged horse, and they are imbued with a little bit of their godmother Loki's trickery magic. And then the final one is the I forget what we called them, but it's horses they're explicitly the horses that carry the Valkyries.
Hmm.
And so they're not like descended from, they're actually those specific ones. And so they're maybe a gift to like a heroic mortal, like a Bellerophon sort of figure,
Yeah.
or somebody who is particularly vile and like took down a Valkyrie and stole her horse kind of thing.
That's wild. Imagine, I'm just imagining just a quest now of having to retrieve a Valkyrie's
Right?
horse. It's kind of sick. Also, it did kind of slide under the radar there, but sea serpents as a mount?
Sea
Hello? What?
serpents as a mount, yes. And I don't recall if it actually got into if it lived through editing, but there was at one point a feat that would let you pick one as like a pet and gave you some benefits while riding the sea serpents. Because I really wanted to have something other than just ships for how you're going to traverse the ocean, right?
Yeah.
And if you ever play like Valheim, you got your ships, you got your sea serpents, and usually when they meet, it sucks. Like it's really bad for the
Usually.
ship. Um, but you could have like little outriders who are riding these little eely sea serpents along
That's
the
so
along the sides of the
cool.
ships, and I wanted to provide all sorts of really cool options for like ship to ship combat and
Hmm.
something a little more interesting than just my guys are standing on this boat and your guys are standing on that boat over there and we shoot arrows at each other until they get close and then we hit each other with axes. Like
Set up
cool,
the
but
serpent
also
riders.
now we've got like serpent riders off on the sides and they're going to come in and flank over here and it's going to be more interesting was the hope.
Yeah, I mean that even conceptually, that sounds way more interesting, and like it really would diversify the ways that again players would have to approach ship to ship combat, right?
Right.
Because
That
maybe
was
they
a
have,
big part of what I was going for.
yeah, because maybe they have one or two themselves, but their enemies probably definitely do. And especially, I imagine they can go underwater. So, like, being ambushed out of nowhere by
Right.
sea
Yeah, yeah.
serpent riders is just, especially if they could also breathe underwater, then they could just be fully down there until they come up to attack. That's horrifying.
I think it should lead to some interesting encounters.
Yeah.
That actually leads right into some of the stuff for vehicles. If you wanted
Yeah,
to touch on that,
absolutely.
as noted, we didn't do dog sleds, but we I wanted to take the basically base everything around the longship because it's so iconic. I didn't want to be like we're going to do something else entirely. So we have Longships, right?
Hmm.
There's basically just the one vehicle, but instead we have instead of different vehicles, we have a bunch of like add-ons. So there's magical items you can get. So you can get magical sails, magical oars, magical rudders, and figureheads for your longship. They give it different abilities. There's also I was tasked with doing a bunch of spells, and I think the biggest thing for the thing that would change the paradigm of I'm on a boat, right? The most
Hmm.
is this spell. It's a level 4 transmutation called Earth Sail. It lets you sail through land. Like you roll up on the shore and the shore just parts in front of the bow of your ship and you just go on your merry way as long as you don't run into a mountain or a big enough rock, right? There's still things you have to go around,
Yeah.
but you can bring your ship with you, which is like if you're gonna have a ship or you're playing a pirate campaign or something, there's very regularly like this is our base of operations. This is where we store all of our goods, all of our ill-gotten booty, the stuff the resources we're going to need to venture out onto the ice. You can't like portage a long ship. It's like this massive thing. You're going to get like six guys to carry it on their heads or something like that. It's not super feasible. And also adventurers don't go into a lot of areas that are like, super smooth traveling.
Yeah.
So I wanted to make sure that we had something where if people wanted to dedicate the time, it's a fourth level spell. You have to be pretty hefty to be able to cast it. And you have to do it, every day. Um, but if you want to dedicate the time and the effort, you can take your ship with you as you go inland, which, along with rivers and stuff, gives us like, oh, my inland city got raided by Vikings. Like, what the hell? How'd that
What do you mean by that?
happen?
I feel like in a lot of fantasy, there is always like the one, like, oh, the ship that's like going through the sand. Yeah, it feels like a natural progression of like, okay, how do we make this fantasy a reality in a way that also makes sense for the fiction of this world? The Vikings don't want to have to necessarily carry their longships everywhere
Exactly.
they're going. The adventurers probably also don't want to do that. Someone probably would come up with some magic that would make that way easier.
Right. Yeah. So, I had, it wasn't necessarily like intended as prep for this, but I read a fair bit of fiction, like fantasy fiction around the concept of sailing.
Hmm.
Brandon Sanderson did Tress in the Emerald Sea, and
Hmm.
then Scott Lynch has a book called Red Seas Under Red Skies. And Naomi Novik did a book called Tremorare. It's all about sailing and dragons, right? And like they treat the boats like dragon aircraft carriers and stuff. It's very interesting, like military fiction.
That's
And so
dope.
each of those kind of gave me an idea of like if we were on a ship, what are the kind of situations that you would use magic to address a problem, right?
Hmm.
So for the first, we've got very utilitarian stuff like the wind is always at your back, magical sails that treat the wind is always behind you. It won't
Right.
fix it if you're becalmed, so the DM still has tools that can be like, no, you are screwed, hold still, knock it off, and you can be like, we're having a pause, little bottle episode moment.
Hmm.
But it gives as long as there is some wind, like if we're being chased by pirates or whatever, we'll get away because the wind is always at our back, stuff like that. And I also wanted to make sure that we had a lot of interesting combat stuff. So there is a set of oars. They're great oars. They're good for rowing really fast. But also, if you get close to somebody else's oars, they're like magically enchanted. They just chop through their oars as they're going, which I believe was a strategy that the Romans used with like the slave galleys and stuff like that. So it seemed like
That's sick.
it's exactly the sort of thing where someone would look at it and be like, well, we're already doing this. Let's just do it with magic. Be
Yeah.
better at it, right?
Yeah. And it like and it feels very much born out of the not well, necessity is a hard word to use for like combat. Right, but like born out of the desire of like, okay, how do we make things easier for ourselves in
Right.
ways that are natural extensions of things we were already doing,
Exactly.
which is really really cool. And I love that the longboat in this way is like this continually upgradable or modifiable entity
That
that
was a big thing, both with the stuff that I was working on, and then also the module that I was working on presumes that you have a ship and that you're going to be continually upgrading the ship. So there are some things in the module that are specific rewards for you to bring that ship along with you as well.
So next up, I want to talk about flighting, which is something I
Yes,
only learned about in reading about the Northlands. You all wrote it into the world book
I did.
as something that people could do. What is flighting?
Okay, so those of you who have played Assassin's Creed Valhalla will probably recognize this because it features in that game too. But it was a real thing. Like the Norse in like the Vikings, as you might imagine, are pretty boisterous warriors, but fighting each other wasn't always great. Like you didn't want to kill each other before you go off on raids, but games were very important to the Norse culture, probably because you're stuck in the snow a lot and you're inside a lot, and games are the way to pass the time.
Yeah.
Some of the first board games we ever had are from that era.
Hmm.
But flighting is a insult rhyming contest that people would do in front of the Jarl or in front of the community, and it was a game. It was basically these two people would insult each other in this rhyming way,
Yeah.
and the crowd would judge who won. And it was basically like a Yo Mama rap battle, except Viking style. And
Except
I went,
Viking.
that's amazing. We need we need rules for this in the game.
Right. Imagining whole conflicts between the party and like some enemy of theirs going, whoa, 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 whoa. I could kill you. You could kill me. I don't want to get hurt right now. What if we just fight about it?
Yeah, it's like that scene at the end of Guardians of the Galaxy. It's a dance off, bro.
It's exactly.
or like Pitch Perfect when they're doing that thing in the pool where they're all like doing like the weird like song battle. I mean, so the way it works is the two players or the player and the NPC decide how many rounds they're going to go. Usually about 3 or 4. They appoint a judge who basically like keeps the order of things, and they face off. Whoever made the challenge goes first, and they stand up someplace high so that the audience can see them, because you need an audience. Challenger always goes first. They open with an insult, and then the person they challenged responds to it, and it goes back and forth, one thing per round until it's over, and then the crowd decides who won. The way I mechanically did it, I basically gave rhyming words, like a D12 table of rhyming words. And so, like, bog, dog, fog, hog, log, slog. And basically, all it has to do is rhyme. Like, you usually want it to be sort of in the same cadence and stuff, but as long as it rhymes, it's fine. And I figured people had rhyming dictionaries. I didn't need to, like, rhyme every word in the world. But just the idea of, like, players doing this at the table, like, made me very happy.
Yeah.
And I think Zach's already talking about trying to do it at one of the cons.
Yeah, he's been talking about it, and I would love to see that in the org play room.
No, I want to see it on the dealer room floor. We have two little like platforms, and we just call people up to do it. We have the rules like printed out. They can be standing up there and just doing it right in the middle of the dealer floor. It'd be great.
That's pretty good, actually. Okay, you know what? The convention meeting was earlier today. I'm gonna remember this for next time. That's great. That's so fun. And it's one of those things where, like, I love giving players little games that they can entertain themselves with.
One of the best adventures, and I'm not that I want to plug a different company here, but one of the best adventures I ever participated in or ran was by Richard Pett, who is a great designer and is a phenomenally creative, crazy individual, where he wrote a play. You had like the idea of the adventure was you had to perform in this theater to be invited to this mayor's house so that you could rob him. And it was this forbidden play because it involved summoning monsters on stage and you had to fight them. And it was called like a murder play. Richard wrote the play that's included with the adventure. And so your players are playing characters who are then playing other characters.
That's so good.
And it's so crazy. And I went, I want this. Actually, I got Richard to write one of the Adventures of Sagas, mainly because of that adventure.
Sadly, that's where we're going to have to end those conversations for now. But let's wrap up. I'm getting a vision, a prophecy. When the ship comes to port and the box is delivered to my door, I'm gonna be so happy. The Northlands is a setting so cool that it only makes sense that all of the equipment and stuff that you get to take with you is going to be cool as well. And I also love how the Northlands is just kind of an amalgamation of all of the things that Kobold Press has brought to 5th edition, wrapped up in this neat little Nordic bow. We've got player-driven choices that help decide who your character is and what they can become, and expressing that in both a narrative and a mechanical sense. We've got flexible downtime rules, and we've got so many tables. God, you could be rolling on tables for days. It's just everything you would want from a Kobold Press book. If you still haven't backed the Northlands Kickstarter, well, you gotta go do it now, because you only have 2 weeks left. After that, it's done. Alright, thanks for watching, everyone. And don't forget, if you haven't already watched the rest of this Northland series, please go do that, because you're missing out on all of the information about the player options, character threads, and setting information about the Northlands itself. And maybe that's stuff you want to know. And everyone, don't forget to hit subscribe down below so you get notified every time a video goes out, and you can stay up to date with Kobold Press. And I'm sorry to say, players, next week is for the GMs, because we're talking about Northlands sagas and giving you just a bit of a taste of what adventures lie in store in the Northlands, and giving you some insight from the designers who made those adventures. But until then, my name is Kendrick or Kendo, whichever you prefer, and don't forget to go out, be bold, be brave, be valiant.